Hi, I'm Chris Donaldson. In this presentation, I analyze the financial situations of two couples, Jason and Katie, and Dominic and Chris. Using modules 1 through 12 of the course, I break down their financial structures, behaviors, money script, and decision-making patterns. I also present targeted recommendations grounded directly in the course concept with modules cited throughout the talk. Both couples earn above average incomes but still experience significant financial stress. According to Module 1, financial well-being is shaped more by behavior and structure than income. In this analysis, I'll walk through the key financial challenges using Module 3's ratio framework, Module 4's money script, and Module 12's behavioral finance biases. Jason and Katie earn about $250,000 per year, but their financial reality is fragile. As Module 11 discusses, emergency funds must cover deductibles and pure risk events, yet they have only 2,200 saved. Their budgeting system has 84 categories, which aligns with Module 12's concept of cognitive overload, making it harder to make effective decisions. They also show a pattern described in Module 7, paying off debt and quickly reaccumulating it. Dominic and Chris earn around $180,000 annually but carry over $600,000 in debt. Their rental property loses between $900 and $2,000 each month, violating Module 3's principle that fixed costs must remain controlled to preserve flexibility. Although the net worth appears positive, Module 1 emphasizes that liquidity, not just assets, determine actual stability. Module 3 explains that fixed costs should ideally stay around 50 to 60% of take-home pay. Both couples dramatically exceed this level, Jason and Katie at 83%, Dominic and Chris at 69%. This limits their ability to save, invest, and handle unpredictable events, increasing psychological stress as discussed in Module 12. Neither couple had an emergency fund large enough to cover even a small disruption. Module 11 shows that emergency savings must be sufficient to cover deductibles and uninsured losses. Relying on credit, as both couples did, creates a long-term vulnerability. Module 7 stresses the dangers of minimum payment strategies. Jason and Katie repeatedly finance discretionary items like their SUV and home upgrades, reflecting the framing bias described in Module 12. Dominic and Chris experience scarcity-driven decision-making, a pattern linked to Module 4's money scripts. Both couples demonstrate several predictable biases from Module 12. Loss aversion explains why they avoid making financial changes even when needed. Mental accounting leads them to treat money categories differently instead of focusing on overall affordability. Status quo bias shows up in their reluctance to address long-term issues. Module 4 explains that early childhood messages shape lifelong financial beliefs. Jason grew up with scarcity and inconsistent spending, leading to aspirational purchases. Katie was taught to ask for what she wanted, but to also feel guilty. Dominic and Chris similarly inherited conflicting money messages that show up in their spending, saving, and communication styles. Module 1 highlights that financial decisions are emotional before they're rational. Dominic feels overwhelmed handling all the financial responsibilities, while Chris uses emotional reasoning to determine affordability. Jason and Katie talk about money constantly, but without a strategic framework, which leads to exhaustion instead of clarity. Modules 3 and 6 emphasizes evaluating the long-term cost of purchases, not just monthly payments. Jason and Katie's SUV and financed home upgrades demonstrate a misunderstanding of TCO. Dominic and Chris' rental property shows the same pattern, focusing on short-term feelings rather than long-term math. Module 11 shows that low frequency, high consequence risk must be insured or financially prepared for. Neither couple is in a position to handle a job loss, major car repair, or medical bill without going into further debt. Emergency savings must match deductibles to prevent cascading financial problems. Low contribution rate. Module 9 explains the importance of diversified, low-fee investments. Both couples underinvest relative to their income and long-term goals. They also demonstrate confusion between investment types, such as pensions, 401ks, and brokerage accounts, highlighting the need for clearer education. Module 10 teaches that major life stage expenses must be forecasted in advance. Dominic and Chris anticipate a major increase in childcare costs but have no structured plan in place, which will worsen the already high fixed cost ratio. Module three's ratio framework underscores that both couples operate far outside the recommended ranges. The fixed cost, saving rates, and debt to income ratios confirm structural instability, providing a mathematical basis for behavioral symptoms discussed earlier. Modules 1 and 3 support simplifying financial systems to reduce decision fatigue. I recommend both couples adopt cautious spending plan and automate core financial behaviors. This approach uses the status quo bias from Module 12 in a positive way. So, yeah. Recommendations. Behavioral interventions. The cooling off rule. This includes the monthly money meetings and bias awareness. Um, in Module 12's mitigation strategies, this includes reducing friction and increasing awareness. A 72-hour cooling off rule can limit impulse spending, and monthly structured meetings replace reactive financial conversations. Recommendations. Debt strategy. Refinance high interest debt. Avoid no financing. Module 7 supports refinancing high interest debt and avoiding new financing. Both couples must break their cycle of reactive borrowing and shift toward intentional repayment strategies. Recommendations. Insurance alignment. Cover high impact risk. Module 11 stresses ensuring high consequence risk. Both couples need coverage reviews and must fund emergency reserves equal to at least their deductibles. Recommendations. Investment plan. Increase contributions. Use diversified low-cost funds. Module 9 demonstrates the long-term benefit of diversified funds. Increasing retirement contribution and adopting low-cost ETFs or mutual funds will dramatically strengthen long-term financial stability. Income does not equal stability. Mindset plus structure does, and it equals results. Module 1 reminds us that financial well-being is created through intentional habits, not income. By restructuring their budgets, addressing behavioral biases, and planning proactively, both couples can move toward long-term stability and reduce stress by a lot. These are my citations, but before I end the video, I want to give a quick conclusion. In stepping back and looking at the journeys of both couples, Jason and Katie and Dominic and Chris, a clear pattern emerges. Their financial challenges do not stem from income limitations, but from structural imbalances, emotional decision making, and lack of cohesive financial system. That, despite earning well above national averages, each couple experiences a level of financial instability, stress, and uncertainty that mirror households earning half as much. This reveals one of the most important truths emphasized throughout this course. Money problems are not solved by income alone, but they're solved by alignment between behavior, planning, system, and long-term vision. Both couples suffer from high mixed costs that severely restrict their financial flexibility. According to Module 3, fixed costs should stay within 50 to 60% of take-home income to maintain cash flow resilience. Yet, Jason and Katie sit near 83%, while Dominic and Chris hover around 69%. Numbers like these make it nearly impossible to save consistently, invest meaningfully, or absorb financial shocks without resorting to credit. This structural imbalance is at the heart of their stress because it leaves no margin for error, and in personal finance, margin is everything. The second major theme across both households is absence of fully funded emergency reserve. which violates the risk management hierarchy presented in Module 11. Neither couple is in a position to withstand a job loss, a medical bill, or even moderately sized unexpected expense without spiraling into debt. Jason and Katie have only a few $1,000s saved, and Dominic and Chris continually drain their savings to cover childcare. Without liquidity, every problem becomes a crisis, and every crisis becomes more expensive than it should be. This is why Module 11 emphasizes ensuring high consequence risk and maintaining liquid reserves to cover deductibles and time gaps. A third share issue involves poor debt strategies and impulsive financing. Both couples repeatedly finance discretionary items, cars, home improvements, travel, furniture without fully considering long-term cost. This behavior is consistent with basis from Module 12, particularly framing, present bias, and mental accounting. Jason and Katie evaluate affordability through the lens of monthly payments rather than total cost of ownership, leading to long-term debt cycles. Dominic and Chris rely on credit during periods of financial strain, displaying the scarcity-driven decision-making outlined in Module 4's money script. Next, both couples show profound behavioral and psychological patterns that amplify their financial difficulties. Loss aversion, mentioned in Module 12, explains why both couples avoid confronting problems until they become severe. Status quo bias explains their resistance to making necessary but uncomfortable decisions slash changes. Mental accounting explains why they may have simultaneously overspent in one category while believing they're saving in another. These couples are not failing because they're irresponsible, but they're demonstrating predictable human behavior operating under financial stress. Communication challenges compound these issues. Dominic feels overwhelmed and isolated while managing the finances, which reflect module one's insight that emotion-driven decision making under stress doesn't lead to anything good. Chris navigates by feelings rather than facts, creating a mismatch in financial expectations. Meanwhile, Jason and Katie talk consistently about money but lack a strategic framework, causing emotional exhaustion rather than clarity. What all this, what all couple need is is a structure, predictable system, monthly monthly money meetings, shared visibility of cash flow, and a clear division of responsibility. Another major takeaway is lack of forward-looking planning. Module 10 highlights the importance of anticipating life stage expenses, yet neither household has adequately prepared for major future costs, such as rapidly increasing childcare expenses for Dominic and Chris, or long-term home maintenance and retirement readiness for Jason and Katie. Without financial intentional planning, both couples remain trapped in a cycle, reacting rather than proactively shaping their financial futures. At the behavioral core, both households are significantly influenced by childhood money script. Module 4. Jason's upbringing paired with inconsistent spending leads him toward aspirational purchases without the accompanying planning. Katie's childhood mixture of indulgence and guilt creates emotional tension in her spending behavior. Dominic and Chris internalized messages about instability and just getting by, which shows up as a reactive financial habit and avoidance. These manuscripts are not cautious, but they silently shape attitudes toward risk, spending, saving, and communicating. When we synthesize all these factors, structural ratios, emotional biases, manuscript, risk management gaps, communication dynamics, and investment misunderstandings, a common message becomes clear. Both couples are not struggling because of their income. They're struggling because their systems, behavior, long-term strategies do not support financial lives they're trying to build. The major takeaway from this comprehensive analysis is that financial stability is not a product of earning money. It's a product of designing system that works under pressure, operating with emotional self-awareness, planning proactively, and aligning daily decisions with long-term goals. This is why conscious spending pl- this is why conscious spending plan, automated system, structured communication, and bias awareness behavior are central to both couples' recommended path forward. Ultimately, the core lesson is simple but powerful. Financial well-being requires both math and mindset. It requires an honest look at ratio, but also an honest look inward. It requires discipline, but also compassion for emotional weight money carries. It requires planning, but also flexibility. But importantly, it requires replacing reactive patterns with intentional habits. If Jason and Katie and Dominic and Chris commit to reducing fixed costs, building emergency reserves, restructuring debt, improving communication, and understanding the psychological forces influencing their decisions, they can transition from chronic financial stress to long-term stability and control. Their income gives them potential. Their behaviors and system will determine their outcome. And that's it for today. Thank you guys.